Not sure why I'm bothering to type this all out. I guess I'm hoping that it'll help me make sense of things. That it may reveal details I hadn't noticed before, but I doubt it. I'm really starting to lose it. So is everybody else. I'll start at the beginning. I got to the university at around 10 this morning. I had an exam for intermediate philosophy, an elective course, just figured I'd get it out of the way during the summer. I don't remember seeing or hearing anything weird when I first walked into the building. Then again, I wasn't really paying attention. My eyes were glued to my notes, an attempt at some last-second cramming, although I distinctly recall first entering the building through a door that I'd gone through many times before. The weird shit started with the exam itself. The questions on the first page seemed relevant enough to the material that we'd been taught in class, but then I turned the page over, and I couldn't understand what I was looking at. It was a diagram of some bizarre, complex shape. Could have been a machine of sorts. The part that scared me was that it vaguely seemed similar. Not enough for me to be able to place where exactly I'd seen it before, but enough to invoke this distant recognition. It made my skin crawl. Whatever the memory was, it had most certainly been an unpleasant one. There was no question below it. Actually, the rest of the page was completely blank. I raised my hand while continuing to stare at the diagram, thinking that maybe they'd given me a misprinted copy. When no one came over to me, I looked around the room, seeing that it wasn't actually a proctor or supervisor present at all, just a bunch of confused-looking students. Thinking back, I was sure that I'd seen a person standing at the front of the room when I'd first entered. It was the same person who told us that we could begin writing, but it hadn't been the professor. It hadn't been anyone I'd ever seen before. I hadn't questioned it at the time. None of us really knew what to do. And eventually, someone got up, left the room, and then a few more followed. But most of us stayed seated. I guess we were still under the assumption that if we left, we'd be in big trouble. A product of years and years of academic conditioning. After a few minutes, one of the students came back. His eyes were wide. He told that there was something weird going on. That the doors at the main entrance were now missing. It was a difficult thing to believe, but the guy had said it with such fear and sincerity that it compelled us to stand up and leave the room in order to confirm. And he happened to be right. Where the doors should have been was just a blank, solid wall. Somebody suggested that it could have been construction. Everybody else argued that that was impossible. We were in the lecture hall for no more than 20 minutes. What kind of construction starts and ends so suddenly? Of course, the next step was to go and check the other exits, find out whether or not we'd actually been trapped there. I knew the layout of the building fairly well, not like the back of my hand, but I'd been here enough. It was reasonably large, 3 stories tall, probably a basement as well. I knew that there were 4 different exits. Though it wouldn't have surprised me if there were more. After scouring every inch of the first floor, I could feel my heart dropping down into my stomach. Every exit that I clearly remembered existing before was gone. All replaced by a blank wall. Afterwards, I walked back to the main foyer where most everybody else had gathered, all of them with this stunned look on their faces. Somebody brought up the fact that all the windows were missing as well. We all looked at her. And then we looked around. She was right. It was something we hadn't noticed at first because the shock of the missing doors had overridden it. They were all gone. Even the large glass panes on the roof. People were shaking their heads, their expressions a mix of confusion and deep distress. Some paced around, muttering to themselves. A few of them were cursing out loud. I observed the group. There were maybe around 30 of us, and I only recognized a few faces, but that made sense given that I had barely shown up to any lectures and I only knew one of their names. Rachel. She was standing separate from everyone else, looking intently at her phone. I'd sat beside her during the first class of the semester, where they'd forced us to participate in a series of icebreakers. We'd exchanged numbers then, but neither of us had reached out afterwards. She noticed me and offered a tight smile. She walked over, asking if I had any cell reception. I checked and saw that I didn't, which wasn't normal. Not that I'd ever had good reception in this building, but there'd always been at least one or two bars. Now I had absolutely nothing, as if I were out in the middle of the woods or something. She then asked me if I had internet access. I could see that I was still connected to the university Wi-Fi, though. Everything seemed to be loading at a snail's pace. She said she was experiencing something similar. She tried sending out some emails to the administration asking what the hell was going on, but they hadn't been delivered. I have a friend, James, who was also supposed to be on campus that day to write a different exam. I tried calling him on Instagram, but the connection was too poor for it to go through. Then I tried sending him a message, asking him to walk over to the building, tell me what he saw from the outside. The message took a painfully long time to go through, but eventually it did. While we waited for a response, Rachel brought up the fact that there was a bridge on the second floor connecting this building to the Earth Sciences. With nothing better to do, we went up the stairs in order to check it out, but we weren't the first ones there. A group of 3 were already standing in front of it. They looked like they'd just seen a ghost, blood drained from their faces. When we rounded the corner, we understood why. The bridge was there, but it was dark. Not dark as in the lights weren't working. I mean, there was just nothing there beyond it. A complete absence of everything, an outright void. We couldn't even see a few inches into it before the light was completely smothered. It wasn't even gradual, it just stopped. Staring at it was uncanny. I began to wonder if maybe it was actually just a black wall. I grabbed an empty water bottle out of my backpack, preparing to throw it in, when one of the other guys told me not to bother. "We tried that," he said. "It's not solid. It's not a wall." Rachel asked him if anybody tried to go in there. He shook his head. He told her fuck no, but that she could be their guest. She stared at it for a long while, and it almost looked like she was considering it, but she didn't move. Soon a few more people came up, and we caught them up to speed. By now, there were about 10 of us just standing in front of it, all waiting for somebody else to go in. A silent tension hung in the air as if there was some kind of bizarre trap. Eventually, somebody volunteered to check it out. A guy I didn't recognize at all, tall, muscular, buzz cut, a tattoo of a chainsaw on his arm. Said his name was Arnold. He approached the darkness carefully and stopped a few feet in front of it. Then he just stared ahead. We asked him what he saw. He said, "Nothing at all." He tried using his phone's flashlight, but it couldn't pierce even an inch of the gloom. It was clear that he didn't want to go in, but that he nevertheless committed himself to it. Finally, he moved. He was in there for about 5 seconds before he came sprinting back out. And I mean sprinting like hell, all the way downstairs without sparing a moment to stop and explain what had happened. We kept looking into the dark, expecting something to come running out after him, but that didn't happen. Nothing moved, and nothing made a noise. We went back down to the first floor and found Arnold hauling chairs from the cafeteria into the foyer. Somebody ran up to stop him, but he pushed them away, told them to fuck off. He began launching chairs at the drywall, tossing multiple in rapid succession. Then he picked one up and began using it like a blunt tool and smashing away. He'd become absolutely feral. Before long, he'd excavated a human-sized hole. We ran up to him, tried to calm him down. He just went harder. Eventually, his body gave up and he was forced to rest, and that's when he finally told us what happened in the bridge. There were people up there, he said, in between long, labored breaths. We glanced at each other, and then we asked him to explain. He took another deep breath and told us that almost immediately after he'd walked in, he ran into something that was blocking the way. But it wasn't a wall or a random object, it was a person. A group of people, he realized. All standing perfectly still in the dark. He said he knew they were people because he could feel their skin. But now that he was thinking about it, he wasn't sure they were actually people at all because the skin was cold, clammy. The texture was strange. He said he could hear them breathing, but the exhales were too quick, as if they were panting. He said that their breath smelled like rotting gasoline, whatever that was supposed to be. He said that they were whispering terrible things to him, things about him that they shouldn't have known. Once he recovered enough energy, he was smashing the wall again. We could do nothing but stand in silence as we watched him. I didn't want to believe any of what he just said, but his fear seemed real. Something had definitely happened to him up there. Soon a few others picked up chairs and joined him, which led to more, and then Rachel and I had chairs in our hands as well. We spent about an hour smashing away until we realized something wasn't right. Because we should have been outside by now, but the wall just kept going, just endless drywall. We measured the distance between where we were now and where the wall started. Nearly 10 feet. Maybe our sense of distance had just been distorted. So we kept going for another hour. 18 feet. It was still the same story. As if they'd built an entirely new wall under 20 minutes. One that was inexplicably thick. A civil engineer major pointed out that the wall itself was impossible, that it wasn't structurally feasible because there was no metal frame. That there weren't even any pipes or insulation, that nobody would have signed off on this, especially not a university building. I didn't know what to think. But this seemed to be going nowhere, so I put my chair down, walked over to the cafeteria, and sat down in front of an empty coffee shop. It looked like it was still open. There's a half-filled pot of coffee in the back, pastries, sandwiches, displayed in the glass. All the lights still on, it was just devoid of any staff. Then I realized that the only people in the entire building seemed to be the people who'd been writing the exam. It was a fact that bothered me so much I forced myself not to dwell on it. I was tired, starving. So I went behind the counter and I poured myself some coffee, grabbed one of the sandwiches, bit later, I was joined by Rachel and a few others. Others have gone off in different directions, likely still in search of another exit. Another group continues trying to break through the wall, and every now and then they'll walk out of the hole with their shirts drenched in sweat, holding broken chairs. They'll come over, grab more before going back in. Their expressions are trance-like. I can see that some of their hands are bleeding. As I was writing this, I got a text back from James. He says that he went to the building, he saw it surrounded by cops and police tape, said that he tried getting up close but was stopped, told it was a no-go zone. Though they'd refused to give him any explanation. Said he saw all the entrances covered by what looked like large white tents, each one guarded by officers wearing body armor, holding rifles. I've been planning on asking him to contact the police. I was hoping that might help. But now I really don't know what to do. If you're in San Antonio, Texas during the month of October, I really want to see you. So much so that I'm doing two, count them two, that's one and then another, live creepypasta reading at La Tida in San Antonio, Texas. If you want to find out more about that or figure out where La Tida is, take a look at the description down below. I have a link over to La Tida, which features, tea and eccentricities. During the month of October, I will be there October 11th and the 25th. And starting from the 25th, I'm also helping them put together a little haunted attraction or something of the sort at the tea shop. So, check it out if you're in the area. And if you're not in the area, then go to the area. San Antonio, Texas, October 11th and 25th. Also, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody on this list of Patreons. Some of these amazing folks are Diana Kraus, AcidSystem, Blake Rattler, Brandon Mendoza, Brenna Caltuna, ChicagoHitman, CoryxKenshin, CrusaderChocobo, Dakota Best, Daniel Poulsen, Dante Kinkade, Enchanted Buns, Estebean, Hades' Nephew, himbojerry, hourminsec time, Ingegerd Solstrom, Jay Kearns, Jadis Pet, McMog, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Psychomel, Plant Piz, Red Shadow Cat, Remember the Sun, Salty Surprise, Samara Lynn, Seclude, Simba's Bloody Mojo, Sky Harbor, Smiley the Psychotic, Sully Man, Tully Sue, Team Leo 76, The Demented Voice in Your Head, The Chavez Brothers, The Ginger Bros, Tommy Walters, Viceroy Scorn, William Wellington, Your Bro Keegan, Zabub, and Shadow Gardens. A huge thank you to you guys, everybody who shows up in the description down below, and as always, folks, sweet dreams.